It's on.
Should be clear.
Camera and lights, and you're on.
Okay. I call together the item one, calling to order the zoning committee agenda. Number 2, notification that a public hearing is scheduled for Monday, September 25th, 2017, on an ordinance tentatively identified as ordinance number 1467, an ordinance amending ordinance number 704, proposing to change the zoning districts of properties located at 976 East Arcadia Drive and 9399 Babcock Boulevard from zoning district I, institutional, and R2, parent 1 and 2 family residential, parent, to R6 elderly housing, parent, elderly housing district, parent, and amending the town zoning map accordingly. This rezoning request would facilitate the construction of 2 buildings linked together containing 90 independent living apartments with various indoor and outdoor amenities. This has been reviewed by the Planning Commission, and Bruce, would you expand on what this is exactly? Please.
It's a 90-unit independent living facility. It will be for rental, and it's part of Vincentian Collaborative Systems. As I understand it, that the people, although will have the opportunity to participate in the entire Vincentian Collaborative System, which includes nursing and assisted living, should it be needed. However, the concept is that people will age in place. And basically what that means is that the services, as time goes on, will come to them. And that the only time that they would need assisted living would be if they were in rehabilitation. The only time they would need nursing would be toward if there was a much more serious incident which required them to be in nursing. The concept is that it's independent, completely independent. There are no services provided on site. When I was talking about aging in place, those would be people that are brought in for the individuals, but they don't have services on site.
And this is going to be on the site where the former Regency Hall nursing home was located.
That is correct.
And this item has been since called for working purposes, the Terrace Place at Vincentian.
Correct.
Bruce, may I ask a question? Can you explain the 1 and 2 family residential? I don't understand the 2 family. If they're individual,
That's what is zoned presently. The idea is to combine the lots and rezone it to R6. It is presently not permitted the way that the property is zoned now. And the idea and what the hearing is to talk about is, the hearing is talking about rezoning the property so that they can do what they're proposing. The property is oddly zoned. They wouldn't even have been able to do what they were doing as a nursing home because of the split zoning that's on the property now. Thanks for asking that question. That helps clear up a lot of things.
yes, it does, because
I
I was misunderstanding.
I should have explained in the beginning what that was all about.
You don't happen to have the map with you, do you? The map kind of explains what we're...
Well, I don't know if you can see it.
You know where it is?
Yeah, no, I certainly do. I've listened to several presentations. I thought it might help if you can... There's a real informative map that...
Yeah, okay, so this is the property right here. This is Coomer Road, Babcock Boulevard, and this is the property. And if you can see that part, this is the institutional part.
The light blue?
This is the R2 property. Light blue is residential, R1 and R2. Proposal is to, and the institutional, this piece, this is all one piece here. So this piece is split zone. This is where the administrator's house was. So the proposal is just to turn it all into R6 and make it it will actually make it more conforming if it gets rezoned.
Okay.
So they already own this property?
They already own it, they've
So
owned
there's
it.
no
for a while.
buying and selling of any property?
No, not at this point.
And they won't be required to have any set aside of property, like,
No,
okay, because this is just their own and they're just trying to change the use of it?
yes, they want to have a more appropriate use for the times.
It's interesting, their explanation in terms of it's not germane to the zoning, but They had something on the order of 200-plus employees for years at this place because of the nature of what happened there. And that's going to get reduced down to what it was, I was astounded, with four employees. Because they're all, well, they're self-contained,
It
self-contained
was a
units.
combination of home and rehab.
It was.
Because my mom
That's
went,
right.
when,
Okay, well,
This property will be tax exempt, is that correct?
I believe it will
For
be. yes.
property tax
It will
purposes?
remain, I think it will probably remain tax exempt, but I don't know that. Toby seems to think maybe not.
That's up to the county, isn't it?
Well, that question's not before us, but it'll
I
have to be
don't think
determined.
it's tax exempt either.
I think it was,
Or was it, what was?
when it was Regency Hall.
It'd be a question for the assessor.
I don't know that, but I think.
Could we have a little increase the volume here, where, what was Jerry saying? He thought it was probably not tax exempt, is that what he was saying? I couldn't quite
Oh,
hear.
no, I thought it, when it was Regency Hall, I think it was.
It could be, I don't know, that question will have to be answered, but.
The assessor will figure that out.
Yeah,
That's
it's
not
not-
our job, so.
That's not our job tonight.
Right.
Anyway, any other questions on this?
Will they come before us with bricks and all those kinds of things like
Yeah,
before?
the first step is to rezone, and once it's rezoned, once it's rezoned, they'll come back for a site plan. But you'll have a very good idea what it looks like when it comes in for the rezoning. Everybody will have a pretty good idea what it is and what it looks like.
I presume he will present the same map and
Yes.
drawings that he's already presented.
It'll
to-
be probably a little bit improved from that.
Right. Okay,
Do you have any concerns, Bruce, about the rezoning of this?
Not about the rezoning, there are some issues that we want to deal with, and I brought those to their attention way back when they first started talking about it, and they were very careful to address those issues, primarily stormwater.
okay. Any other questions from council? Comments from council? Any questions from the audience on this issue?
Hi,
Yes.
Marcia Caliendo,
If you can, would you go to the mic,
Oh,
please?
sure.
Thank you.
Non-existent,
I'm
Mike.
complimented people normally.
It's not amplified, it's for the video.
Hi, Marcia Caliendo, Mohican Avenue. Just a question, I'm a little bit confused on the charity and the tax exempt status. It was Regency, so it was owned by Vincentian Collaborative prior,
That's right.
correct?
Or it still is.
And it still is, yes, because I know. So because Vincentian is a not-for-profit, that makes this a tax exempt?
Well, I said a moment ago, I don't know definitively what the answer to that question is, but that will certainly be answered before the property ultimately is constructed. The assessing, Allegheny County assessors have to make that determination, determine what the taxability of that property is. But I'm not even sure, and I take it we're not sure how it was.
That's what I was gonna ask, what was it as a
Well,
Regency?
I don't think so, but I'm wondering why it would be for example, those collaborative services, single unit ones that
Right.
go up along Babcock, are those tax exempt?
I don't know for sure, but I
Yeah.
think not.
Well, we can find, see, I question whether, I'm not making an opinion on it, but I just question whether these would be tax exempt. I don't know why a townhouse would, or a home like this that somebody lives in would be necessarily tax exempt, but we'll see, that will be
Thank you, because
determined.
I know they're
Yeah.
not cheap.
Yeah, well, that's it, they are pretty expensive.
Yeah. Thank you.
They're going to be very nice, thank you for the question. Does anybody else have a comment? If not, I'll turn it, there's no further business on the zoning committee, Mr. Chair?
Finance Committee,
I'd like to call the Finance Committee to order. Number 2, we'll review a policy which provides detail regarding the temporary investment of funds in the town's various governmental funds in accordance with Act 10 of 2016. This act will broaden and better define types of temporary investment that we can make, and this enhances what is in the town's home rule charter. I'm going to ask Reach to give us a little more detail on this, if you would, please.
Sure.
We're required to follow state law regarding investment of town idle funds, which are funds not in pension plans. And the legislature passed Act 10 of 2016, which broadened the investment vehicles that municipalities could take advantage of. And we'd like to pass this policy so that we can take advantage of these additional investment opportunities we have. It's not our intention here within the Finance Department to act as investment managers and to pick and choose things we're going to buy, but there are organizations out there that offer financial services to municipalities, school districts, authorities like the Pennsylvania Local Government Investment Trust that already have that set up so that you basically have a savings account that pays far more than the checking with interest account would pay. But we can't take advantage of those opportunities unless we formally adopt a resolution that allows us to take advantage of the Act 10 investment vehicles.
Anybody have a question on that?
Yeah, we looked at it and it conforms with Pennsylvania law and does exactly what Regis said.
Thank you for the explanation. Okay. If no one has a question, we'll move on to number 3.
Yeah, excuse me. So this is the policy that they're gonna vote on then as a resolution? How does that work? What
We'll
is-
draft a resolution that refers to this policy.
That
You'll vote on the
refers to this
resolution.
policy?
Right.
Okay. So if there's anything that we wanted to change, now would be the time to say, could we add something or take away with
Yes.
this? Okay. I was looking at the last page, 6 of 6, under amendments, exemptions, policy considerations. I thought I would like to add, everyone's approval, is this policy will be reviewed on an annual basis, and any changes must be approved by town council. And right after town council, I would like to put under the advice of town manager and employees of the town as designated.
I think that's the intent. Yeah.
Because it looks like all of these people. I just thought that would clarify that, but under the advice of town manager and any other employees.
What paragraph are you referring to, Kim?
Under amendments,
6 of
on
6.
page
Yeah,
6.
I heard it said it, but where?
Right there.
6 of 6?
Well, it's sort of like
Where?
considering the advice of
Am I in the wrong
Yeah.
document?
town manager.
All right, what document
Right.
are supposed to be reviewed? This one? Not this one?
Yeah, the one-
Because the way it reads now, it's on an annual basis and chart that they must be approved by council, the town manager, and any employees that the town manager decides on. But really, that, I would think that should be by council under the advice of.
Right there.
Can we stick that in there?
Sure. I'll make that change.
Okay.
You want one, Bruce?
No, thanks.
Put ice in it.
Anything else?
It's already cold.
Okay, moving on to number 3.
Thanks, Bruce.
Review the, thank you, Bruce. Sorry, whoever you are.
You called that before, that's okay.
Review the 5-year town revenue and
What's
expense
that?
budget
How do you know I was
projections.
first?
I didn't care if I was born in anything.
Okay,
Would you like me to start, Joanne?
for me,
Would you like me to start?
please.
Report. We have, were asked many years ago, it's probably about 15 years ago, by town council to present projections for our operating budget and our capital budget. The Home Rule Charter requires us to have a 5-year projection and capital budget as part of the budget submission to council. And the council thought then, and we've been doing this again, Ralph, you're tilted, that's not gonna.
Thank you.
The council then thought, and it's been a great tool to sort of do a snapshot at this point in time, is we've entered the budget preparation process, we being the town administration. Several weeks ago, Reed Jebner circulated a memo among the department heads asking them about their larger purchases, capital purchases, and also specific capital projects that they foresee. And also then he followed up with a memo about if you have anything in particular that may be that may affect the operating budget, let's have that information so we can present this to council for tonight. So Reed states some information, primarily his work. I've gone over it with him, and again, the department heads have submitted their input. The figures to call out, just so it's clear that the figures that you see, if you flip over to the first page, 1 and 3, the first 3 years are audited figures. Those are actual revenue and expenditure activity for 14, 15, and 16. And then what the budget showed, and when council adopted the budget this past December, and the also where we stand today with a projected actual, and reach comments, of course, that it's based on data that we have through about 8 months of time here. So when we finish the budget, we'll have another month or so of data that we can help do a little bit better job of projecting. And we do have our budget review process. The charter says that we submit it to town council by October 15th. We put that document out for the public, and we have new media that we've employed over the years. That the budget will be released in that way as well, and there's always a copy here, a hard copy to review. So this is the really kind of a snapshot of where we are in projecting out over the next 5 years, and gives us an idea of where we might be going. He has some data about some of the, just a basic rule of thumb. The revenues are conservative. Hopefully we'll achieve a bit more. We have not made them overly conservative, but we've carefully placed projections on what we think they will be, and it's not just a guess from a chair, but basically looking back over time, looking at the future, understanding what's going on in the community in terms of the tax base and other sources of revenue. Expenditures are contrary to what we do with revenues, which is to estimate a bit on the low side, to be careful. We estimate to make sure that we are not going to short ourselves when we project out. We think it's prudent for us to project out a little on the high side, again, not taking advantage of that in any way to have some sort of cushion or something, but to have an optimal view, and again on the conservative side. So you can see the various categories. Reach and I put the memo together, trying to give a comment about each of them in the memo that's attached. Highlights of those. We have been very successful for over a couple of decades now, being able to generate revenue, enough revenue in any given year to have a surplus on hand to put into a reserve capacity in our capital budget to pay for our capital expenditures. The last time the town borrowed money was 1992, a bond issue for the transportation district. We also had a note for an addition on the bank note. I think that was for $1 million. For an addition on our public works building. We paid that off in a short period of time, like a year or two. But and we did not have to use float debt for the addition on the town hall in 1993. And we did a refinance of the transportation district issue in 95, and that's the last time the town has gone up for debt. So we've been able to have funds on hand to be able to fund capital projects for over 20 years. And the way we do that, the council stratified this, and buttressed this, the practice that the town had and the council wanted us to have, and that we do as administrators. On page 2 of the memo, Reed has inserted the unassigned fund balance at the end of each year. What is a quote? It's 2/3 of the way down, page 2 of the cover memo on the projections. It talks about how we arrive at being able to have some funds in excess of what we operate under, and how we're able to then transfer that over to the capital projects fund. and it's 2 months of the average monthly general fund operating revenues or expenditures for the most recent 3 years, whichever is greater. So I'm giving you this overview because I think it's helpful to comment on verbally. We've given you this document, but just to give you some background. And a couple of the key items you'll note at the bottom of the memo, the bottom of page 2, where it says, Regis is referring to page 3 Capital Improvements Fund. We did sustain a couple of hits on our drainage system that are of a capital nature. One in particular in the Town Square North. We've got an estimate from our engineers, done preliminary work that will have to increase our what would have been a more typical drainage program for next year by $275,000, and there's a $30,000 plan that we have in mind to begin to help alleviate flooding along Highland Road. So the $30,000 project, Mark Sabina has prepared a very good estimate for that. So
Is that 436 under actual 2017?
that would be
Is that what you're talking about?
436 under projected for 2018
2018.
under storm sewers and drains. So you'll see on that question,
Okay.
when you go to page 3 of 3, if you'd like to flip over, where Kim Zachary's pointing out, 436 storm sewers and drains. This year we budgeted $1,027,900, and we're figuring it's close enough to call right now, again with this 8-month snapshot that we have, to not say that we're going to spend less or more. We're tracking pretty close. And then next year we're going to spend about $1,245,000.
What are the percentages
So-
underneath these numbers? What are the percentages?
Sorry?
Percentages underneath.
Percent increase.
What are the percentages underneath?
Under each item?
Yes.
Well, the red percentages, anything that's in red means it's less than the previous year by that amount. And black means that's how much more it was than the previous year.
The previous year.
Previous year. So that, I wanted to give the overview, and Reg again does a wonderful job of really booking everything, knowing where, and accounting for everything, and analyzing what we have as our finance officer under his assistant manager duties. But as manager, I thought I'd give you that overview. So Reg, if you have any additional specific comments, you can say no.
I don't.
But
I'll
I think,
entertain any questions.
while you're here, I think, Madam Chair, I think maybe if council members have specific comments about, again, I gave an overview, but if council would like to talk about what we have here or how we arrived at it.
I have a question about expenditures on number 3, Public Works. It says that their prices are increased for
What page you want?
2. Under expenditures on the beginning, the kind of explanation. It says for greater need for road salt.
Yeah, we always assume that we're gonna have a harsher winter than the previous winter was.
So we like have enough salt for like the next 27 years or something, right? Didn't we? We got a lot of extra salt.
We probably have enough salt to get through the end of this year, depending on the winter.
I could, on that one, I could do a little bit better than,
Yes, you
could.
that's
Yeah,
right, a
yeah,
little bit more,
yeah.
a little bit more factual, but Mark Sabina would be, of course, the guy who knows where almost every grain of salt is. But the salt dome that we have holds 5,300 tons, and that's what's in there right now. So on an average winter, we consume 7,500 tons. So obviously, some winters less, some more, and sometimes I remember one winter not too long ago, a couple of years ago, it was like 7,400 and change, so it's pretty close to the
We
average.
came up last year with a substantial
Extra,
balance
extra.
of
Extra.
salt because of
Right.
the
Yeah, and we generally
Conditions.
we fill our shed at the
Yeah.
end of the winter as well, because we assume that the price may go up, and therefore we want to lock in the lower price.
Yep.
But we, remember they were storing it for us
more
because
No,
we
they-
had the salt.
They were prepared to, you mean they being the provider, the salt
Right,
vendor?
they
were
had agreed.
prepared to store it for us. They were preparing to. And they didn't have to do that for us because we consumed enough and then bought enough to fill up our dome, so we were okay.
So we did spend some of that.
We did spend some. And the Council of Governments was under the gun a bit. Some of
And
the other- some of the
fuel
other
has
ones-
gone up? I was thinking
No,
fuel was down.
we assumed it would go up.
Oh,
What
okay.
that's saying is that in 2017, for budget purposes, we assumed fuel prices would go up.
Assumes increase.
We generally
Okay.
do that.
Okay.
Fortunately, the last couple of years, they
Yeah,
haven't.
we haven't. Okay, all right, I see. Thank
Now,
you.
any of these items that Reg or any of our department heads has good intelligence on, advance notice, if the forecasts for oil prices and there's sound data to make judgments, we'll try to base this as much as possible on good data rather than just an assumption. But if we don't have any data, generally, Reg, we're still using the 3% for expenditures,
It's generally 2.5.
2.5, okay. And what did you use for, I guess, a general number for a revenue if you had no
It
clue?
varies. Earned income tax, because of the history, is 1%. Real estate tax, because in the future, other than new construction and appeals, there won't be any other changes. So that's only 1%.
So-
Business privilege tax, we thought would be higher, local services higher, so it varies.
So there's very little that's defaulting to some generic number.
Yeah, we're trying to be as close as we can for a 5-year projection.
Okay,
Any other questions?
comments?
I'm talking to council.
Well, any comments? What do you get?
Well, you can bet Harvey will jack the price of fuel up for a while.
Okay.
Fortunately, we don't have to pay all the taxes on town fuel, so it's, we're getting it about $2 a gallon right now.
Everyone okay with that? Okay, thanks, Rich. Okay, moving on to number 4, notification that a public hearing is scheduled for Monday, September 25th, 2017, on an ordinance tentatively identified as ordinance number 1468, an ordinance establishing an active volunteer fire service credit program, authorizing local tax credits for volunteer members of volunteer fire companies, and establishing administrative procedures and appeals. We did discuss this previously. Anyone have any comments or questions?
Just a brief comment, the ordinance was advertised as instructed by council.
When it's derived, I think it's worth, certainly for the people who would not know this necessarily, that the whole program is designed to be a vehicle to recognize our volunteer firemen who serve all of us. And the only real question that came up as this was debated to implement it on a town basis, the state law was to determine what the maximum amount of the credit would be. There was some thought to have it at $300. I think we as a body decided to do it at $500, which is higher than a lot of other towns do. But we felt that it was a recognition. First of all, the dollar differential isn't that great, and we thought it was worthwhile to recognize our volunteer firemen with that little bit of extra potential extra credit. Okay.
Any other comment?
I would like to have a sentence added on page 2, under 349.02, Volunteer Service Credit Program, A, Establishment. Everybody got that?
No?
Okay, page 2, on the ordinance, not the resolution, on the ordinance.
Where's the ordinance?
Yeah, they're both. 349, about 2/3 of the page down, Volunteer Service Credit Program, A. It says, establishment, the town of McCandless hereby establishes a voucher service credit program. The goal of this program is to encourage membership and service in the town's volunteer fire.
Kim, pardon me for interrupting, but what paragraph are you reading?
Right
Tom?
here,
What's the number that?
349.
349.02A.
349.02A.
Mine doesn't have that language.
Thank you, please proceed.
Are you on
Wait a
the
minute.
ordinance?
I'm on the ordinance. Ordinance in 349.02,
Right here, establishment.
A, establishment.
Yeah,
You said something about a,
Establishes a volunteer service credit program. The goal of this program is to encourage membership and service in the community's volunteer fire companies.
right.
Okay?
You had read some other language and I didn't
She
see
used
it.
the word voucher. You said voucher.
You said voucher,
Oh,
right.
I'm sorry. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
I wondered where that was coming from.
My mind. The sentence that I thought would be good to put in there would be, and to demonstrate the appreciation by the town for this service.
Where would you put that in, Kim?
Just right following that.
end of
After following, or I mean,
After
after
companies,
companies,
yeah.
fire companies.
And to demonstrate the appreciation by the town for this service. I thought that was a nice addition. It-
Yeah,
You like it?
Sounds
Yeah, I
fine.
like
Sounds fine.
It's factual, no problem, from my perspective.
Anyone have an objection? Okay. Any other comments?
Well, just a calculation again, just the detail, a $300 credit would be applicable to someone who has $60,000 in earned income, whereas someone might avail themselves of the $500 credit were they to have income at the level of $100,000. You have to look at the numbers and just do the calculation.
And the credit is based on what someone is earning.
That's right, and I've not done a survey, and I certainly don't have those numbers, but I would expect that the majority of firefighters don't have $100,000 incomes. There probably are some, but if the firefighter makes $60,000 or less, they'd be at the $300 maximum anyway. So it's just an opportunity to reward the firefighters for their excellent and dedicated service.
Any other comments?
Of course, it's another unfunded state mandate.
It's an option.
It's not-
But it's still,
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say no to it, but
yes.
Well, it's funded by the firefighters' income, Jerry. It's not like we have to reach into our pockets and pay more money, right?
Yeah, but you're not collecting it
Yeah.
either.
Yeah,
collecting.
well, I
You're not
understand.
collecting.
I understand, but it's a small price to pay as a tangible recognition for their service. I'm totally for it,
For the amount of hours they put in.
absolutely.
Well, I'm not opposed to it, as you well know.
Right.
Any other comments? Okay, moving on to number 5. Notification that a resolution accompanying ordinance number 1468 will require adoption immediately after the passage of ordinance number 1468, which establishes the annual criteria that a volunteer must meet to be certified under the Town of McCandless Volunteer Fire Service Credit Program to claim local tax credits. So there are stipulations in order for them to be eligible for this.
And these were devised by the Fire Chiefs, newly formed Fire Chiefs Committee of the North Hills Council of Governments, and recommended to the
Right,
first to the Managers
We
Committee.
didn't make those up, those stipulations were given to us.
The COG, in this legislation first came out in January of this year, the Council of Governments met right after the legislation took effect. And the Managers Committee tasked itself to get the ball rolling on what would be a COG-wide amount of credits that would have to be earned for the work that would have to be achieved for the tax credit. So we waited state guidance on this for until midsummer and could wait no longer, so that we had asked in the spring if the fire chiefs would please begin to meet, which they did, and they were glad to do that. And they devised the amount of service that's necessary to receive the tax credit, which is 50 hours per year. And the managers accepted that recommendation and passed that to the executive board of the COG, and the COG executive board voted in favor of 50 hours as well.
Toby,
So-
is that
So that's
active?
throughout the North Hills.
That's not for 2017, though.
It is.
It is.
Well, it's actually prorated for 2017. because the eligibility period, as is stated in the ordinance, each year will be November 1 through October 31. So the first year will be a shorter year. So there'll be 37 hours necessary for this first year.
It's on
Subsequent to
page-
that.
Right,
No,
that's what I was
Page
asking,
three,
yeah.
page 3 of the ordinance.
Those are criteria, are service as an active firefighter, or is there also an element of training in there?
Right, that can be included.
Interchangeable. Active could also mean trained.
Right,
Right.
okay.
The resolution does point out that, you know, it could be, and the ordinance both based on
Right.
the bylaws of the fire company and also certain type of activity that they can do. It can be business, it doesn't necessarily have to be fighting fires, it can be support work,
Right.
business
Right.
work, social, working on support of the fire company. Participation in public relations, community events, fundraisers, and so forth. Is that's service too.
Okay. Any other questions on that? Okay. Moving to number 6, seminars and conferences. Just a reminder that we have a COG dinner at the Greek Church on September 21st. You should have, anyone who was going should have informed Marie of that. I think that's closed now, isn't it, Toby?
Yeah,
Or Marie, I should ask.
Yeah, we did, we submitted that.
Okay, and also we have a township conference, which is September 28th through October 1st. And if you were going to that, you also need to let Marie know. Okay, do we have any comments from the audience? Comments from council? This closes the finance committee.
Okay.
Well, now,
That balances out the,
That's it.
meeting's over.
Meeting's over.
It is.
Really